I once had a boss. I once had a boss. Or should I say? Actually, that would be a good song to do a video on. Quite a sinister kind of song lyrically, isn't it? Really. So, has a date with a woman. Goes back to her place. She doesn't sleep with him, so he burns down her house. How sinister is that? Creepy song. There's a couple of creepy Beatles songs. Run for Your Life is the other one. There you go, tangents. You get 3 tangents on this channel, the like of which you won't find anywhere else really, apart from maybe a Ronnie Corbett joke. So, but it's humour actually is the subject that I wanted to talk about on this occasion, and this boss that I once had, who I shan't name. She was called Lisa. I can't remember her surname. I probably would name her actually, because she pissed me off. This is years ago. Terribly resentful, aren't I? Hold on to these things for years. Who said to me, trouble with you is you've got no sense of humour. Alright? And I became a stand-up comedian. Mind you, I wasn't necessarily a good stand-up comedian. Told me I had no sense of humour. That's probably one of the worst things that you could say to or about anyone, really. Or one of the worst. I guess there are worse, but it's one of the worst, isn't it, really? And it's certainly not true. Okay, a bit like the I don't know if anyone any Megadeth fans out there. Again, wild tangent. Hey, I'm just loving all these tangents. I'll put them all in tags. Megadeth fans. So Symphony of Destruction. Is it Symphony of Destruction? No, Peace Sells. The song Peace Sells. Peace sells to who's buying. So it's got the line in there. So you say I'm not kind. I'm kind, just not your kind. Okay? So usually when we accuse somebody of not having a sense of humour, what we mean is that they don't have our sense of humour. Okay. So apart from having a rant and bringing in lots of kind of, miscellaneous and kind of off the wall kind of material, what I want to talk about is the concept of bandwidth. Okay, because I just think this is a really useful way of looking at senses of humour. Okay, and this is quite useful. It might be quite useful maybe for when you're looking about things like compatibility. Okay, so when we think that somebody doesn't have a sense of humour, usually we mean they don't have the same sense of humour. And I think this whole stereotype thing about Germans is, I can't make sense of that myself, because I've met lots of Germans have a great sense of humour, I've seen lots of Germans, just laughing their heads off. So, they just got a different sense of humour, and different cultures do. It's like they say that Canadians don't have, or certainly Canadians and Americans don't have quite the same sense of irony as British people. I remember, as an example, it was Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer did a sketch in Montreal where Vic Reeves was carrying this massive kind of roll of carpet on his shoulder. I never actually saw the sketch, actually. I just heard him talk about it. And I think Bob Mortimer said, what's that on your shoulder? He said, I always carry it. It's my lucky charm, my lucky roll of carpet. And the Canadians were just, that's not funny. I don't get that. Why would you? I can't do a Canadian accent. Canadians kind of sound American, but they go boot. There's nothing funny about that. I've just offended Canadians now. So anyway, to get back on point, okay, the single message, very very kind of specific, short, snappy message I've got to deliver here. It's just kind of couched in a lot of distraction. So I just want to offer you the concept of bandwidth. I don't know if that's a very good gesture for bandwidth, of sense of humour. Okay, so some people have very narrow bandwidth of humour, and some people have a very wide bandwidth. A wide width? Yeah, that's probably not, that's tautological, isn't it? You know what I'm trying to say. Okay, wide or narrow width of humour, width of band. Yeah. So, and there will be overlaps, and there will be areas where there's a lack of similarity, a lack of connection, where what I find funny, you don't find funny, or what you find funny, I don't find funny. Okay, so when it comes to compatibility with people, it's about bandwidth. So they might find things hilarious that you think are just silly. I mean, I think of an example, people falling over. I really don't find that funny. Some people think it's hilarious, or people making errors and mistakes. People kind of fluff things. People think it's hilarious. They love that. I don't. Sometimes when people make certain mistakes are funny, and certain mistakes aren't. But certainly, if anyone's likely to hurt themselves, I don't think that's funny. I kind of tend to be more empathic when somebody falls over. But different things like slapstick, that's a very particular. Some people like slapstick, some people don't. Some people like silly humour, some people like very kind of dry, sophisticated humour. Now, I like to think that I've got quite a wide bandwidth, not a complete. It doesn't encompass everything. There will be gaps in there. There are things I don't find funny, like people falling over. A lot of slapstick I don't find funny. Some slapstick I find funny, and some I don't. So you might be completely different. You might be the exact mirror opposite of that. Therefore, you will think I have no sense of humour, and I might, if I wasn't wiser from being the great demystifier, I might fall into the trap of thinking that you don't have a sense of humour, when actually it's just differences. Okay. So the secret is, with your friends and loved ones and partners and family, is find where you intersect, find where you marry up with the other person's bandwidth. And there are probably, for most people, there's probably at least one kind of humour where you will marry, not literally marry, maybe might lead to marriage, where your senses of humour match. And there'll be areas where they don't, and that's kind of okay. And don't waste your life or their time by trying to explain to somebody why they should find something funny. Okay, just don't do it. Okay, it's a bit like foods. It's a bit like I think there's certain humours that you can learn more through. You can develop an appreciation for, perhaps. But generally speaking, it's like food, isn't it? It's like I can't stand cheese. You might love cheese, okay, but you're not going to persuade me to like cheese. Okay, you can tell me how wonderful cheese is for you. I taste it; it's disgusting. Okay, and humour's like that. So the secret is, if you with somebody and you think that they don't have a sense of humour, find that commonality, find that area where your humour and their bandwidth of humour overlap. Okay, and then you can have a laugh. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. Rangimarie.